Hi everyone, Daljit Peterson here from astrolab21.com. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. An interesting year. Numerologically speaking, this is an 8-year. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 4 equals 8. 8 years are years of cycles, which is an appropriate thing to talk about when talking about astrology, right? Which is the study of cycles and patterns. We're a couple weeks away from the Chinese New Year, which begins with the new moon in Aquarius, which is exactly 2 weeks away. Tonight will be the Leo full moon. But yeah, the year of the wooden dragon will begin in 2 weeks. Very powerful year in terms of the Chinese astrology. A dragon year is powerful unto itself, but a wooden dragon, right? The wood element is the first element, the sign of initiation and new beginnings, which is a theme of this video, right? A new chapter, a new beginning. And for those of you who have been following the channel for the last few years, you may have noticed that the introduction video was a little different. Not the usual Astrolab animation that I used to open all my videos, but a new one called Mutable Fire. And that's the title of this video, and actually the theme of sort of a rebranding of the channel. So it's been a minute since I've posted a video. It's been 8 months, as a matter of fact, since my last video. And some have been asking, Daljit, where are the videos? Why aren't you doing your monthly forecasts? And, I've been reassessing the direction I want to take the channel, the content that I want to create. And, I think the monthly forecasts are helpful. They do have a rather short shelf life, If I would do a video on Aquarius season 2024, it'll be relevant for about 30 days, and then in a month's time, it's old news. And as I've looked at the videos I've created over the last 4 years on the channel, the ones that seem to be most helpful are the ones that have a little bit longer shelf life, like the series I've done on the blueprint of the soul, which is, teaching folks how to read their own chart. Some of the videos I've done with the deeper dives into the longer cycles. I think like the Saturn-Uranus cycle is the most popular video in terms of views that I've gotten. And obviously that's a cycle that lasts from 1988 to 2032. So it has a longer relevancy. And so as I consider the time and effort it takes to produce some of these videos, it seems more appropriate to focus on stuff that has a little more longevity and maybe more utility for people. The other thing is that I've also wanted to broaden my scope of what I discuss and the content I create. So while astrology has always been one of my first and foremost primary passions in terms of my own personal spiritual and philosophical orientation, and one of my go-to tools in my toolkit for navigating my world and my life. It's only one of many, as I've indicated, or as I've identified, spheres of influence, as I like to call them. So this has been an idea that has been brewing for a while. And actually this concept of mutable fire that I want to discuss has been gestating for years. As is often the case with a lot of my ideas. As I look back on my notebooks and my sketchbooks, the idea for mutable fire dates back 3 or 4 years as a concept that I wanted to present. Similarly, Astrolab 21, that was an idea that I started playing with 7 or 8 years before I actually launched the channel. It's just part of my process. It takes me a while to figure out what it is I want to do with these creative ideas and these inspirations that I get. And this is one of them. So I'm kind of happy and excited that I'm finally initiating this new sort of direction or rebranding, if you will, of the channel here as we anticipate the year of the wooden dragon. So it's kind of an experiment, and it's kind of an opportunity to explore more of the other interests that I have that are outside of astrology, or really adjacent to astrology or tangential to astrology. And as I contemplated what I've wanted to do and the content that I want to create going forward, I've identified, 6 spheres of influence that I'm going to talk about here shortly. So actually, I'm going to share my screen. So anyway, the Mutable Fire, what's this all about? And I had a lot of fun actually creating this new animation for this rebrand, if you will. And again, this is a concept that I've got sketches of over the years. And it started with, I've always loved this image, this illustration, this famous image from Leonardo da Vinci of what's called Vitruvius Man, right? It's just, Da Vinci was just brilliant and one of my favorite sort of thinkers over in human history, really. And, I've got the flower of life here and the seed of life sort of superimposed, and another one of the sort of esoteric symbols that is very resonant with me. You see this everywhere from, it's all over many of the temples and the pyramids of Egypt and the Giza Plateau and elsewhere. Deep mathematical encoding in all of these rich symbols. But I was also always thought, all right, great, Leo, of course, you're in the 15th century. It's all about man, Vitruvius Man, and everything's man. But what about Vitruvius Woman? Where's she? And of course, I do a quick internet search, and I'm not the first person to ask that. And, someone had adapted the illustration to have a Vitruvius Woman, which I thought was interesting to incorporate. And now here I have her sitting inside Metatron's cube, which is another sort of extraction or abstraction of the flower of life, and gets into all the Platonic solids and the design of forms, which seems appropriate for Vitruvius Woman, as she is the yin essence of the form principle, if you will, versus the yang of man and the seed of life. So it's just a fun thing to play with. And then kind of, I thought, well, why don't we blend the two together, right? We've got 4 arms and 4 legs. Why can't we have 2 of them female and 2 of them male? So that's kind of what I did here, is that the left half, the left-handed path, of course, is the yin feminine essence. The right-handed path is the male yang essence. And this gets into, another sort of esoteric tradition that I've always been really fascinated with, about this sort of alchemical notion of the combination of the binary, the duality of yin and yang, of masculine and feminine, combined into one, right? This is the great sacred marriage of alchemy, something that Carl Jung wrote quite a bit about in his work. The concept of the anima and the animus, the male inside of every female and the female inside of every male, and this process, this alchemical process of fusing the two. And then I have that sitting inside of, if someone will recognize this as the Rave Mandala of the Human Design System, which is a blending of these sort of dualities in a lot of ways, of yin and yang, and a subject that I'm going to get into, which is going to be one of the big themes of this new direction that I'm going. So anyway, that's sort of a little bit of a breakdown of Mutable Fire. And of course, the name itself has an astrological connection, right? Mutable Fire. For those who watched the Blueprint of the Soul series, where we did an elemental breakdown of all the zodiac, we know that that's code, Mutable Fire is code for Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is the sign of the zodiac that is mutable fire, right? There's 3 fire signs, but only Sag is the mutable fire. It's the element that gets mutated. And this really is a potent metaphor. Of course, I am a Sag rising, and so I identify with this archetype quite personally. It really does inform how I like to present and share information, the content that I create, what I'm sort of sharing with the collective here in my understanding of things is a sense of this Sagittarian desire to inform and to educate and to inspire people. And so that's what I really like about this concept as a thematic. Fire is the element of passion and sharing enthusiastically with others. And it does capture a big part of my personality. And the idea of mutability, right? Things being mutated, things being shared, things being synthesized and integrated. So that is sort of the theme of where I want to take the channel, being able to integrate other subjects and areas of interest beyond just strictly astrology, as I've been focusing on for the last 3 or 4 years. So as I contemplated, how I wanted to structure this, I kind of identified there's sort of 6 spheres of influence that I am really passionate about and would like to try to synthesize in a way in terms of how I fashion the content that I want to create going forward. And so when I look at those 6 spheres, obviously the first sphere is astrology, right? That's been the focus of this channel for the last few years, and it will always be one of the main pillars of my, as I said, my spiritual practice, my philosophical outlook, my way of understanding and making sense of the world. But I want to explore topics that are, as I said, tangential or adjacent and overlap with astrology. And one of the subjects that I've been, one of the reasons that I've been absent for the last 8 months is that I've been doing a very deep dive into the system of human design for the last year. One of my colleagues in one of the sense-making circles that I participate in encouraged me to explore the system, and it was a wonderful suggestion because it really is a fascinating system. And the next series of videos, the first series I'm going to do actually will be focused on human design and helping people who are coming from astrology to human design understand the connection between these 2 systems. It is an incredibly deep and rich, simple yet complex system, and it really fits the mandate, the tagline for this channel, right? Astrology laboratory for the 21st century. That's what Astrolab 21 is supposed to be, right? And I love that metaphor of a laboratory. I like the idea of, I've always said with astrology, I said, don't believe astrology, but try it out, see how it works, experiment with it, right? And that's what you do in a lab, is we experiment with these modalities. And that is exactly the essence of human design. In fact, as you'll learn, you're encouraged to not believe the system, as the founder of human design, Ra Uru Hu, always said, but don't believe it, try it, test it out, experiment with it. And it actually is part of the languaging of the system, is that you enter into an experiment with your human design. And we are going to experiment with human design here in the Astrolab. I feel like this is a key integration that I want to explore. It's where my passion is right now. I've begun to integrate it into some of my readings with some of my clients. I've been doing it with friends and family, and obviously myself, my own personal experiment, and I have been getting amazing results from it. So I'm excited to share that information and my take on that system. There's another system that is also a derivative of human design, and that's called the gene keys, which is another, I think, really fascinating system I've also been exploring and experimenting with over the past year or so. And there's a beautiful, I think, symmetry between these three systems, and a synthesis that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And I'm finding this synthesis to be really profound. So those three of the spheres that I want to explore on the channel going forward. The other three are also related in a way. The fourth here is yoga, and astrology and yoga have been the twin pillars of my entire adult life. I got certified as a Kundalini yoga instructor back in 2007. Although I don't teach it formally, I am a teacher with only one student, which is myself. And I took teacher training because I really wanted to get a deep understanding of the system so that I could apply it to myself. And I have done that for, going on, almost 20 years now. And, I felt like astrology is sort of a very yang mental pursuit. It's very spiritual in a way. But yoga is a very yin embodied practice. And I feel like those two need each other in a way, or at least for me personally. That grounding and embodiment that a yoga practice will give you, I think, is essential. And maybe now more than ever, as we look forward to the time that we're navigating through. So I want to be able to share some of my insights about my yoga practice and how you can integrate it into your life. So I'm excited to share that sphere of influence. A fifth sphere is psychedelics, another subject that I've been exploring for most of my adult life. And the inspiration, I'm very influenced by the late 20th century thinker and author Terence McKenna, right? The first and foremost psychonaut of the 20th century, and a fascinating lecturer, and I think very profound and fertile thinker in the area of psychedelics. And he always had championed or argued for what he called the archaic revival. And I think that archaic revival may finally be manifesting here as we get into the middle part of this century. There's a renewed interest in psychedelics. We're seeing it in sort of, psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. We're seeing a lot of microdosing. We're seeing, for good or for ill, and I have my concerns, but we're seeing big pharma start to move into that sphere. And I think psychedelics, the psychedelic experience as well as the psychedelic worldview, I think is going to be an important component of how we make this transition into this new era and this new age that we are clearly at the cusp of and moving into as we move through this decade. It's in the astrology, for sure. It's in human design, as we'll discover. And I think having a psychedelic sensibility, the felt presence of immediate experience that psychedelics gives us, as Terence would describe it so aptly, is key to a grounding of the experience that we're going to need to have. And both yoga and psychedelics is a grounding, which I think work hand in hand again. And then the sixth sphere for me, I'm calling media. And I struggled with what to actually call this, but I think it is the best descriptor of this topic and this subject. And it's another subject that has been one of the great themes of my life. I actually work professionally in media. I work in film and television, and that's been my career. That's been my vocation for my entire life. And this stems from, in the way that my interest in psychedelics is greatly inspired by Terence McKenna. My interest in media is greatly inspired by Marshall McLuhan, who was a famous media theorist who wrote in the 50s and 60s and was a brilliant writer and theorist, and actually, predicted the internet back then, some 50, 70 years before. And termed the term the global village. If you've ever heard that phrase, that's McLuhan. And I was just completely fascinated by his work as a teenager and leaving high school and moving into university. So much so that I really fashioned my entire university education around his writing and his theories. I made my own major designed around communications, psychology, and anthropology. So this is something that it's a topic that is always of interest to me, and I think is pervasive in our world, particularly as we are looking at things like the internet, the World Wide Web, artificial intelligence, social media, where we are in the world and where we fit into it. I think an understanding of media is going to be a very important part of navigating the new world that we're moving into. So these sort of 6 spheres are the things I want to be able to explore and to move between these domains freely and to blend them wherever possible. And I think an idea of blending is something I hope to achieve with the channel as I create new content. And here we have the flower of life, as I showed you in the illustration for the intro video. And I see these 6 spheres as having this sort of flowering quality to them, with astrology being one of the spheres, overlapping with human design, overlapping with the gene keys, and then also folding in an understanding of yoga and its philosophical and physical and metaphysical understanding and practices. Okay, I call this an ecology of practices. And then blending in the psychedelic experience and the psychedelic worldview, and then an understanding of media and the media environment that we are embedded in, right? The programming, the conditioning of our culture and our society, our civilization. All of these things, to me, blend together. What I'm looking for is that sort of the Venn diagram, right? What is the common thread? Where do all these things come together? And so that's what I want Mutable Fire to be. I want it to be a blending of these 6 sort of topics, and I'm looking for the overlap and the interface and the synthesis and the integration of those. So, that's a quick introduction, a quick summary about where I'm at right now and what I want to do going forward. So hopefully that's of interest to all of you. And, if you've been following the channel for the last few years with an interest in astrology, I'm still going to have astrology content woven into this, but it won't be exclusive, right? So I'm hoping that if you found my material interesting to this point, you'll be interested in what is to come. I'll be creating a lot of content kind of the same way I have, doing deep dives into subjects. But the other thing I'm excited about doing is having conversations with other people, conversations with other astrologers or yoga practitioners or human design analysts, media influencers or media theorists, psychedelic explorers, and the like, because I think these are conversations I have offline, and a lot of the communities that I'm a part of, these various, what they call the dark forest, right? These like smaller social networks that are sort of public or semi-private. And they're fascinating conversations, and I think sharing those conversations is really an interesting way of spreading the mutable fire, if you will. So I'm excited about that as well, and hopefully you'll find it of interest. I'll be talking to other astrologers, and there are many good astrologers out there. There are a lot of channels that do monthly forecasts in the way that I've done, and so there's a great service there, and I don't feel like there's a need to fill that gap as much. I feel like the stuff that I want to do now will be more, have more utility, more practical application, and a broader interest, which will give a broader sort of perspective and worldview that I want to share. And that's part of my passion, part of my soul mission, really, as a Sag rising, right? Is to spread the enthusiasm, spread the fire, and broaden the lens and the perspective. So first thing out of the gate, I'm going to do a series on human design. Probably a multi-part series, which is specifically taking people from astrology into human design. And it's kind of what I've done over the last year as an astrologer approaching this new system. What did I learn along the way? How did I approach it? And I'm going to take you through that step by step. So the first video I'm going to do will be an introduction to human design. And I think it's going to be interesting. I think, again, for those of you who are into astrology, I think you'll find this system quite fascinating. And again, I'm going to be doing readings, human design readings, in addition to astrology readings, in tandem with. So there'll be an opportunity to learn about that and possibly have a consultations with you on that. So lots to look forward to. So exciting here to be initiating this new venture in the year of the wooden dragon that is to come, and so much coming our way in 2024 with the astrology. We've got Pluto back into Aquarius. We've got a very powerful eclipse coming up in April this year, which I think between these two things kind of setting the tone for the entire year. I continue to write a monthly article on Medium for any of those who subscribe there, strictly on astrology. So you still have that as a resource if you're interested. I provide free friends links to those articles on my Facebook page if you want to find those there. So that resource is still available to you. But anyway, that's it. Welcome to Mutable Fire, and look forward to spreading the good news with you. All right. Sat Nam.